And good evening. Thank you for joining us here. I'm Gabriel Porras in the city of Stockton this evening, where we are continuing to follow local election results from the San Joaquin County Registrar of Voters office. Looks like we just got in some new results. I'm going to put those on screen for you right now. This is a current look at what we're looking at right now. 35.9% of voter turnout at this point. It appears as though we still have more results that have still yet to be counted, but this is what we got so far, 35.9%, a very slight increase from what we saw just a few minutes ago when we were on the air around 9 p.m., where we had 35.7% of the votes. So no significant updates are going to be expected in this update. But Jerry McNerney still holding the lead in his congressional district number 9 with 63.38% of the votes. Josh Harder for District 10 is still holding his strong lead as well with 63% as well of the vote. Both of them are the incumbents in those races. As for Senate District 5, Susan Eggman still leading her opponent Jim Ridenour. Eggman with 62.68% of the votes at this hour, and her opponent with 37.32. Moving on to Assembly District 9, Jim Cooper still holding the lead there with 52.78% of the votes at this 11 o'clock hour. For District 12, for the State Assembly, Heath Flora still in the lead with 54.14% of the votes there. Assembly District 13, Kathy Miller in the lead with 53.8% of the votes. Now, as we move on to the Board of Education, Trustee Area Number 3, Douglas Vigil, still in the lead here. I'll scroll up a little bit. At 63.96% of the votes there, as you can see with these preliminary numbers. As for the San Joaquin Delta Community College District Board Member Trustee Area Number 2, Elizabeth Blanchard still in the lead with 49.59% of the votes going to her at this hour. For Trustee Area 5 for Delta, Kathy Garcia, current SUSD board member, in the lead with 39% of the vote, but pretty closely trailing is Stefan Castellanos, who is at 38.35% of the votes in that race. For Area 6 for San Joaquin Community College, Teresa Brown in the lead with 54% of the votes. As we move on now to the Stockton Unified School District Board Member Trustee areas. For Area Number 1, Cecilia Mendez still in the lead with 68.02% of the votes, so still a pretty strong lead, over 1,000 away from her nearest opponent there. As you can see, Stockton Unified School Board Member Trustee Area Number 3, Valentino Silva still having the lead in that race, only off by a few dozen ballots, however. As you can see there, 35% of the votes going to him, 30% of it going to his opponent, Alicia Rico, in second place. Stockton Unified Area 4, so far in the lead is Ray Zulueta Jr. With 38% of the votes. Ling Luntao trailing behind at 32.77% of the votes. Moving on to Lincoln Unified School District Board members. For Trustee Area Number 2, so far in the lead is Ashley Jones. She has 80.10% of the votes. Pretty strong lead against her opponent, Garland Frazier there, who has only 18% of the votes at this hour. Sandra Chan for Area Number 4 is leading with 58.59% of the votes, as you can see there. Deanne Moore and Tonini behind at 41%. Moving on to San Joaquin County Supervisor, District Number 5, Rhodosia Ransom is still in the lead from our last updates with 53.97% of the votes. And as we move into Stockton Mayor, really no significant updates to report here. We are still seeing Kevin Lincoln in the lead with 50.63% of the votes. Incumbent Mayor Michael Tubbs trailing behind with 49.37% of the votes. This is a very slight update from what we saw earlier. Earlier we saw Lincoln, who had, at one point it was 50.5% of the votes, and then Tubbs, who had 49.5% of the votes. So that's the only update that we've seen there. A very small update, not much to report in regards to that. But again, that race still neck to neck, so it'll be certainly interesting to watch that go on as the evening progresses. As we move on, though, to Stockton City Council Member District 6, Kimberly Wormsley still has the pretty high up lead there with the 70.23% of the votes going to her at this hour, 29.77% going to her opponent, Gloria Allen. As for Measure X, it is still on the path to being approved by San Joaquin County voters, holding 66.85% of the votes are going to approve that measure at this hour. No votes are at 33.15%. So again, no significant updates in this result update that we just brought you. The race for mayor still neck to neck. A lot of these races still neck to neck, and a lot of these candidates who still have high leads. What we've also not seen change is how San Joaquin County is voting for the presidential election. Voters in San Joaquin County are still holding on to the Biden and Harris ticket, with 62% of voters in San Joaquin County voting for Biden and Harris, whereas 35.84% voting for Donald Trump and Mike Pence. Again, though, this number at the very top of the screen here is pretty important. 35.9% voter turnout. That's all that's being counted so far. Our next update is expected to be around midnight. That's when we'll see more information. Now, initially, the Registrar of Voters Office told us that these updates that we just showed you would include people who voted today. We're not sure if that has actually been included yet, given that there's been no significant update since our previous update that we showed you earlier. However, again, 35.9% voter turnout so far. We anticipate that will increase as we get more results in from the Registrar of Voters Office. When that will be, we're not entirely sure. They say that they will have another update at midnight, so we'll for sure be back on in about an hour now, around 12 a.m., to give you the latest updates as we have them at that time. But 35.9% reporting so far, so not too much to report, and the race for mayor still pretty close. And I know in our previous update, I tried to play some sound for you from voters who we spoke with today. I'm going to try to play that sound again for you right now to hear what they had to say. The voters were talking about how they were looking at the local races, for example, the race for mayor, and the key issues that matter to those voters. I'll try to play that sound now.
The current mayor, I like his universal basic income proposition he did. I think that's a good idea for the rest of the country, so I really like that Stockton has started that. Hoping Jessica Mitchell gets Lodi Unified School District, and just hoping Democrats win up and down the ballot.
I hope Lincoln does, like I said I've told people before, about the presidency. We already know what one is doing now. And they said, well, the other one's just the same. I says, well, how do you know? He hasn't got his turn in.
Tubbs has been in office for a long time, and we still have a lot of problems in our city. Homeless everywhere. Can't even walk through town without stepping on a used needle, And so I feel like we should give someone else a chance.
We were born and raised here, so we just want it better for our kids and for everybody else. So hopefully we'll see. We'll see who best man win.
Have you been following any of the local races, like for mayor, city council?
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that?
May the best man win.
And again, those were just some of the over a dozen voters that we spoke with today at the polls. As you can hear, they were talking about their views on different issues. A lot of the issues that we saw today, the voters I spoke with in terms of the local races, the main issues that they were concerned about were homelessness and crime. So it'll be interesting to see who goes in the lead in the next update and what their position was during the election on homelessness and crime. But again, those are some voters. We'll have more from voters hopefully coming up in the next update, which, as I mentioned, Registrar of Voters Office saying that they will update us around 12 o'clock now, 12 a.m. At midnight for the next results update. I'm going to put this current update on the screen again, though, for you, for those of you who are just now joining us or just recently joined us. I'm going to refresh the display here. Make sure there have been no new results since we've been on the air. Yeah, no new results. 35.9% voter turnout. Our last update that we were on the air with was 35.7% voter turnout. So no significant updates, but some very small numbers have changed. We'll go down to Congressional District 9. You can see Jerry McNerney in the lead. Josh Harder for District 10. For Senate District 5, Susan Eggman is still in the lead as well with 62.68% of the vote. As for Assembly District 9, Jim Cooper in the lead, 52% of the vote. District 12, Keith Flora. For District 13, Kathy Miller. County Board of Education, Area 3. Doug Vigil has that lead so far. Delta College, Board Member Trustee Area number 2. So far, Elizabeth Blanchard is in the lead, as you can see here. For Trustee Area 5, Kathy Garcia in the lead, and for Trustee Area 6, Teresa Brown in the lead. As for SUSD School Board members, Trustee Area number 1, incumbent Cecilia Mendez, has the lead on that race as well, 68.02% of the votes. For Stockton Unified, Trustee Area number 3, Valentino Silva in the lead on that. SUSD Board member Trustee Area 4, Ray Zulueta is in the lead on that one as well. And LUSD Board Area Trustee number 2, so far, Ashley Jones has the lead. For LUSD Board Trustee Area number 4, Sandra Chan in the lead, as you can see there. San Joaquin County Supervisor Rhodacia Ransom for District 5 is in the lead with 53.97% of the votes. Pretty close to the Tracy Mayor there, Robert Rickman, who has 46.03% of the votes. And the one that really a lot of people are watching this evening, the race for Stockton Mayor, still neck to neck, 50.63% of the votes going to Kevin Lincoln, 49.37% going to incumbent Mayor Michael Tubbs. And for Stockton City Council, Kimberly Wormsley again in the lead on that for District 6 with 70.23% of the votes. And at this point, looks like Measure X is doing well in the yes vote with 66.85% of the votes going to the yes on Measure X campaign for this evening. And we'll have, as I mentioned, more updates throughout the evening as we get those updates in from the Registrar of Voters Office. Our next result update We'll be live here around midnight, around 12 a.m., so be sure to join us in about just